So hello once again, another edition of our Saturday recap show, 10 minutes on the clock, with yours truly, Akeem Balaam, aka LI495. So what's good on the internet, and what's good in sports and in life? So, NHL Stanley Cup Finals, looks like that they are close to reaching their conclusion. The Los Angeles Kings right now have a 3-1 lead over the New Jersey Devils going into Game 5 that will be played tonight in Jersey, and it looked like going into Game 4 at Staples Center that series was close to reaching its conclusion, that the Kings were indeed going to sweep the Devils out of Los Angeles. You know, the Los Angeles Kings have been an unbelievable story this NHL playoffs. Having to be an 8th seed, being an underdog against the Vancouver Canucks, who many in the NHL believe were the best team this year in the NHL this year, and believe it or not, they were able to beat them. Now reaching all the way up to the NHL's Stanley Cup Finals, and it looked like that indeed that Game 4 was set up for them. It was tied 1-1 going into that third period, but then Adam Henrique's goal that put the Devils on top 2-1, and then the empty netter from Ilya Kovalchuk sealed the deal for Jersey, as they will now indeed be going into Game 5 tonight in Newark. Tonight indeed in Newark. So now we have that Game 5, and really this Saturday is a big day for sporting events, or at least was supposed to be an even bigger day for even more sporting events, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But you know, the LA Kings, they got 3 chances, of course, to win 1 game. But then again, on the flip side, of course, in the NHL, home ice advantage does not mean jack bull, does not mean jack squat, even though the Devils do indeed have the home ice advantage. But of course, the LA Kings are up 3-1 going into Game 5 tonight. From the NHL playoffs on to the NBA playoffs, and one team has already clinched a spot in their respective finals tournament. That of course is the Oklahoma City Thunder, beating the San Antonio Spurs 4-2. Wasn't it this same time last week where we were talking about the San Antonio Spurs and the fact that their 20-game winning streak was indeed ended by the Oklahoma City Thunder in that Game 3 at the Chesapeake Energy Arena in Oklahoma City? Their 20-game win streak was snapped, but we were still predicting that the Spurs would pull it out and win that series perhaps in 5 games. So much for that. And really, Game 3 was indeed the difference maker. Oklahoma was re-energized, playing in front of their home fans. They won both their games at home, tied it at 2-2. Then it went back to the AT&T Center, where maybe San Antonio would pull that one out. But James Harden's clutch 3 at the end, even with all the comebacks, and even as close as the Spurs tried to make it, James Harden's 3 was the difference maker in that game, as that dashed any hopes that the Spurs had of coming back in that Game 5. And then in Game 6, you had Oklahoma City coming back from an 18-point deficit of all things. It was 18 points. It was 15 points at half. It was 63-48, as the Spurs, it turned out, burned themselves out prior to halftime, and that gave Oklahoma City the opening that they needed to close that game out and win the Western Conference Finals. Now we'll be going to the NBA Finals to play either the Miami Heat or the Boston Celtics, and that will be decided tonight. But before I get into that, what about Kevin Durant? This has the chance to be a banner year, this 2012, for Kevin Durant. He has the opportunity to bring the first ever NBA championship to Oklahoma, and also he will also be an integral part of Team USA's efforts as they look to defend their gold medal at the London Olympics this year. So 2012 has an opportunity to be a huge year for one Kevin Durant out of the University of Texas. So Oklahoma City is now sitting back, resting, and also practicing for who they will play, as to either that will be either the Miami Heat or the Boston Celtics, and of course that will be decided tonight in that Game 7 in South Florida. And before I talk about Game 7, before I talk about that series, and I think Miami is going to pull that one out, even though I do not think it's going to be a blowout. It's going to be a freaking bloodbath like Game 6 was. It's going to be a much closer game, in part because Doc Rivers, even though it was a blowout, it allowed Doc Rivers to rest a lot of his starters. They're going to be, they're going to make some adjustments as well, and they're going to play Game 7 in Miami. But before I get to that, Game 6, LeBron James. What else has to be said? They might as well just cleared everybody else off the court because nobody on either team showed up other than LeBron James. They should have called on the PA system, or the NBA, or either David Stern should have taken control, or Adam Silver, or somebody should have taken control of the PA system and should have said, you know what, LeBron James is the only one really playing out here, so let's just turn this into a LeBron James talent show, and all y'all other players, Rondo, get off the court. Wade, get off the court. Chris Bosh, I know you're still less than 100%, but still, get off the court. Miller, get off the court. All the Boston Celtics, get off the court. LeBron James took over that game after what happened in Game 5, took over Game 6. And what happened in that Game 6 in that Eastern Conference Finals at the TD Garden versus the Boston Celtics reminded me back of a time ago, 5 years ago, when LeBron James was still a Cav and nobody hated the dude. Game 5, Pistons in Detroit. Remember that 48-point job he put up in 2007? When he basically put the Cleveland Cavaliers on his back, and led them to a conference championship after scoring 48 points, basically doing it all by himself when he was with Cleveland. What should have happened and I talk about this all the time? Why does the 2007 Conference Championship banner for the Cleveland Cavaliers say Cleveland Cavaliers? They should take down that banner, modify it, take down the Cleveland Cavaliers logo, replace it with a picture of LeBron James's face, or some of the shots and the layups and the dunks that he had in that Game 5, and re-put the banner atop the Q in downtown Cleveland, because he did it all by himself that game, and he did it all by himself. And because LeBron James, you can tell, he wanted to make a statement. He was treating the Miami Heat, he was treating his own teammates as if they were the Cleveland Cavaliers. He was thinking to himself, okay, I'm in Cleveland again, I got to take over this game, I got to go all out, and he did go all out in that Game 6. Game 7 tonight at the AAA at the American Airlines Arena. We'll see what happens tonight, if the Miami Heat can indeed keep their momentum going from what happened in Game 6, or if Boston can indeed retool, readjust, and steal Game 7 and stun the Miami Heat on their home court in South Florida. And speaking of stunned, NBC Sports, I sort of feel for them. Because the Belmont Stakes was supposed to be a day for NBC Sports that perhaps they were supposed to be getting their highest rate for the Belmont ever since 2004, when Smarty Jones was going for a Triple Crown. So much for that, apparently, as Doug O'Neill, the trainer for I'll Have Another, announced on Dan Patrick's radio show that the horse will indeed not be racing in New York today for the Triple Crown. It was, I guess, a tendonitis injury that happened to I'll Have Another, and Doug O'Neill, we even intimated on that show that perhaps it could be the last round indeed for I'll Have Another, that he may have already retired from competitive horse racing. Just what the sport needed, okay? Just what the sport needed. You wonder why horse racing, for perhaps all the wrong reasons, has fallen into irrelevancy. You know, Funny Side had a shot at a Triple Crown in 2003. That didn't work out. Smarty Jones had a shot at a Triple Crown in 2004, but was beat out by Birdstone with only 1 furlong to go. And then, of course, you had the Barbaro tragedy in 2007, and then, of course, you had Big Brown, who couldn't get it done in 2008, and now this. So much for that, as they've been pimping up commercials all along and producing documentaries on both NBC and the NBC Sports Network. So much for that. No I'll Have Another, no shot at a Triple Crown, no ratings for NBC Sports. It's sort of the belly of the beast, really, of horse racing, and why so many have railed against it, saying that it's animal abuse, and why the sport has fallen on hard times in the past. So that's another edition of 10 Minutes on the Clock, which I must admit, this was my third take today doing the show. show. So you got to forgive me if I sound a little bit messed up than I am on most occasions. But NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, Oklahoma going to the finals, Heat Celtics Game 7, and also I'll have another scratch from the Belmont Stakes, another opportunity missed for horse racing, and I imagine some four-letter expletives being shot across the pond, or rather not across the pond, but across the way from both NBC Sports as well as the Belmont, and maybe even from the New York Racing Association as well, but that's another story. So rate, comment, react, reply, add, and subscribe. Look forward to reading your comments. As always, I'm just one guy talking about nothing, and also look forward to Euro 2012 coverage starting this Monday here on the Real Sports Talk Network. So until next time, LI4, see you on the internet someplace.